or advertiser.
All right, we're getting ready to go live. We got Curt Frommelt with IOA in the studio. We got a good hour coming at you. Thanks for listening.
You make heads or tails of workers' compensation? Very few people can. Listen to the pros, making agents and business owners smarter every Wednesday on Everything PEO.
Hello, 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 Tampa Bay listeners and beyond. You're listening to Everything PEO on Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. I say it every week. I still haven't memorized that new name. It's thrown me for a loop. I read the little sticker here. I'm getting used to it. Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. Curt, my man. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
Good to have you back, right? Friend of the show, contributor, longtime insurance jargon, juggernaut, all of the above. We're going to call you everything, my man.
Sounds good.
Good to have you, buddy. Appreciate you coming back through and doing a lap. We always take a quick moment and do some shout outs from last week's guest. I got a bigger shout out. I just want to say happy birthday to my business partner, Eric Chekarelis, and brother and mentor and all of the above. Happy birthday, big guy. This day's for you. Unfortunately, we had to do a radio show, so we're still working. 6 p.m. Yep. We won't go there. We won't go there. Celebrating starts after the show. Last week in the studio, Tobin Roback, president of Construction Casualty Insurance. Do you know Tobin?
Tobin and I have competed on a few different accounts, and he does an excellent job. And I've tried to actually get back in on a couple of those accounts, and they're very happy with Tobin. So I have nothing bad to say whatsoever. So
yeah, he's building quite the little brand over there at CCI. They a heck of a little PNC shop, and he's got a neat little tool. I know you're really hip to kind of the technology piece and everything going on. He's got this tool called ComCorrect, and it literally helps business owners manage their claims efficiently, right? The stop, whatever, the light duty, the follow-up appointments, getting it efficiently through each step. And the pitch is we can keep your loss pick reduced by at least 50%. He sells it on almost like a PEPM, a per head, per employee baseline cost. I think he was doing this before AI got cool, right? It was kind of funny just to hear the story of this, Curt. He said, we put, I think it was something like 60, 70 grand away to try and build this tool. And, now it's several years later and 7 figures deep. And he really thought, I think the vision for this tool was to be licensing it and, putting it in front of PEOs and large employers. And it really just didn't really work out that way. Now it's like his shiny tool that other agencies don't have. Hey, not only can I, help you with risk management and get you affordable insurance, but, we can jump you on with ComCorrect and manage your claims, better than anyone else. And so it was just kind of neat to, this was his second lap through the show as well. But just to hear that there's entrepreneurs out there digging deep and trying to find the next shiny, bright differentiator, right? And that's really what this has done for CCI is separated himself from the pack. I know there's some other things out there, ModMaster and some other tools, but this really does bring it to a new level.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, anything that agents can do to separate themselves these days is very important. And to have a agent like that take his time to see the future before it ever happened, to really dive into it, just shows, hey, you're inviting some good people on the show.
Yeah, we've tried. I mean, we had President of NAPIO on a few weeks ago. We call it Everything PEO. I say this a lot, but it's more like anything entrepreneur, right? And business of impact in any capacity. That's really what the goal of the show is, right? We try and help educate business owners, insurance agents on the PEO industry as a whole. But anything that, we have a business coaching guest coming up here in a couple of weeks, and we're actually going to be suspending the show again December 31st. So we're down to like that last 8 shows. We're really trying to hit some big home runs. We got a digital marketing expert coming up in a few weeks. We got all kinds of good stuff. So, but nonetheless, we're going to turn the page. This is your hour, my friend. For anyone that didn't catch the show, I believe it was February where you blessed us.
Yep.
But for anybody that missed that show or didn't see the recap, let's start out. I know you're 20 years in the game. Talk to me, man, a little bit. Let's tell our listeners what draws you to the business, and more importantly, how'd you get your start in insurance?
Yeah, thanks, Evan. So 20 years in this business, which is crazy to say. I'm 43 years old. I started right out of school, still 23 years old. And really, I got in the business. I grew up in a small town, Dubuque, Iowa, right? And in Dubuque, Iowa, there wasn't much to do. Okay, so you either worked at John Deere if you were an engineer, you might have worked in a hospital, but if you were in sales, you worked for a company called Cottingham and Butler, and Cottingham and Butler focused a lot on trucking insurance. So here we are today doing a lot of different stuff, but it all started back working on good old insurance with trucking companies. And they really did a great job of training, getting us, up to date, getting us going. But what it really did was it allowed me to focus a lot on my customers, allowed me to focus on who I wanted to be a part of, and really, kind of make an impact, with my clients.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think, and I'm 42, by the way, but at the same time, 20 years in the insurance space, I found my niche very quickly, very young. And I think we both had a couple of great mentors in the sense that with everything being so automated now, AI, turnkey, this program, that, but we were like that last upbringing that taught you they're going to buy from you two ways, right? If they like you and they trust you, right? It's that old Earl Nightingale, Zig Ziglar approach. And it's the approach that we've taken here at PEO Advisors with our staff. And, I know we were just kind of talking on air or off air about this just today, whether you're dialing for dollars or knocking on doors, it's gotten so much harder. But I feel like at that baseline, that old school stop, make the relationship service first, client first, still always wins.
Absolutely. The market has changed to where everybody anymore can hop on a chat GPT, right? And put together some nice email. So the competition has gotten to the point where it's so standardized that it's, really anyone can jump out there. Anyone can do some telemarketing. You can have your scripts, you can have this, you can have that. So people are almost getting over that, right? If you call and you're using the same type of process, you're using all those scripts, people have heard them over and over and over. And what people I think are really looking for today, not only are agency capabilities or PEO capabilities, but what's your understanding of it? What's the story behind it? What's your execution level on it? And I think that's really what can separate, a great PEO or a great agency like IOA from the competition is not only do we know what we're talking about, but have we shown repeated and executable, success in making sure that we provide that level of service that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's funny. And I remember from your show back in February, you have a whole team there. And right, just like anything, right? You have the mom and pop businesses, the mom and pop insurance agents' offices. IOA is obviously one of the largest PNC, agencies in the country, right? I think you're over 1,200 offices strong. So to have that second and third layer from a service aspect, I would imagine only makes it that much easier to create value for your clients. Is that a fair way to go about it? Or is it almost too big?
Oh, so that's wonderful. I'm glad you brought that up. So IOA, yeah, we are one of the largest privately held insurance agencies in the country. I think that's a big win for us as an organization. And the reason that works is each agency is able to adapt to its market. Each agent, like myself, I have equity in my own book of business. I have equity in the way that I do things, and that really lets us dive into each client's needs. We aren't driven by always a bottom line of having to close a business at a certain dollar amount or sales numbers. Although that's important, it's not what drives the business. What's going to truly drive the business is, are we doing what's best for our clients? And the way that the business looks at it is us producers that are on the ground, that are out there making the waves, that are out there talking to people, are going to have the best feel of how that region is changing, how that market is changing. And therefore we can recommend the solutions and the processes in there. And then having the staff availability allows us the risk management, the marketing, the tools, and the resources that, in my opinion, are unmatched from a soup to nuts type of agency compared to our competition.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, just like anything, right? Like the PEOs sometimes get so big, like they get into almost that corporate conglomerate structure where maybe some of that at-home service, that customer service feel falls off that you might get from that small to mid-cap PEO where, everyone's family and everyone, right? But that's where the IOAs of the world really rely on you, right? To have that intimate touch, right, with the business owner to make sure you're structuring it the right way. And I feel like that's like the unwritten oath that all insurance agents take, right? It's got to be clients' needs first. Really peel the onion. What's going on? Find that pain. Address it with real solutions, right? Not bottom dollar thinking. Not how can I line my pockets the most? And I would say overwhelmingly, I don't want that to sound any certain way. most agents are good eggs. They really are. And I think they all, for the most part, put their best foot forward. But sometimes I've never really had that corporate structure like that, right? I've only had really 3 jobs in my adult life. All 3 of them were very small brokerages. Pre the PEO industry, I was actually a mortgage broker through the 9/11 refi boom and all of that. And when that was starting to taper down, I pivoted to PEOs. And in both scenarios, small brokerage before starting my own small brokerage. So I've just never really had kind of that soup to nuts feel that you described.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they still kind of keep it real like that.
Absolutely. Well, I think I have it too. I think your experience is probably a little bit different than a lot of others, to be honest with you. So a lot of the big agencies out there are very corporate driven. At IOA, we've actually had a lot of success at taking seasoned agents like myself, and they've left to come to our agency, which I'll just be honest, we're 100% commission based. And so they'll leave their big salaries, they'll leave all of this, knowing that they can do it on their own and create some sort of some sort of success for themselves and focus on their clients, because some of that client focus has sort of gone away with some of the big corporations. My 2 cents is being yourself and being where you come from, and always being client focused whenever I've worked with you, always doing what's best for the client. Then you're going to attract those agents like a Tobin, like myself, like some other people in this industry that have that same focus. And I think that's really where that synergy can come into play, where you and I, if we are going to work on a deal, we don't have to, talk about every little bit of it from dollars and cents. It's more, well, what makes sense? How do we build this? What are we going to do? And really, what's going to make sure that the client gets the service level, the execution, and the final product that they're looking for. That's going to, I always say my job anymore is to make sure that I'm not the reason that you don't make it home to your family. Your job is to do your job well, get home to your family at night, have dinner with your kids, your spouse, your whoever it is. And I don't want to be, and I don't want insurance, I don't want the PEO, I don't want the technology and all those pieces to be holding you back from doing that.
Yeah, I think that's smart of IOA. We work with lots of insurance agencies all over the country, and so many of them have pivoted to the agents actually don't make commission, they make salary, and if they hit a certain amount of threshold, they get a bonus. Right? We operate the same way at PEO Advisors, where it's like every agent's operating their own portfolio within the master portfolio, and I think that it's supposed to be a career that's ever advancing, right? The insurance industry has the most self-made millionaires. They say up to 40% of self-made millionaires come out of insurance. So when you desensitize that and take that off the table, it almost just gets institutionalized. Like you're clocking in, clocking out. What are your needs? And then you stop, giving that intimate touch, really peeling the onion. So I think that's smart of IOA to keep that approach. So we've got about 2.5 minutes here before break. You're 20 years in the insurance space. It's drawn you to it just like it has myself. What's your toughest line of insurance to write these days, and why? Let's tell some of these.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So for anybody listening right now, I know this is a PEO cast, but really the toughest line of business right now in Florida, everything's becoming a very hard market. And when we say hard market, that means that phone call that you guys take where the agent says, hey, I'm going to save you a bunch of money on this today, just isn't happening. And one of those is property insurance, right? We have an infrastructure in Florida that is continually getting older and older and older. You've seen some collapses happen, you've seen some really kind of horrific things. And unfortunately, that affects the industry as a whole. As these buildings are getting older, as our catastrophes are getting larger, as floods are happening more, as hurricanes are happening more, it's become a very, very difficult piece of business to write. Why do I think that matters, though, to what we're talking about today? So if I'm an agent, all I'm doing is writing buildings and property and this and that, that's great and all. But that might not be a client's needs today because that market is so hard. So from a consultative standpoint, what else can I bring to the table for that person so that when those property needs do soften, when that does change, I can be a voice of reason for them. And I think, honestly, PEO and business services in general is a great lead in or another tool that you can bring to the table to show that you're well versed in their actual business, get to know somebody, get to know the inner workings of their business, from how their employees act to where they're at. Just nothing else really allows you to do that. And I think when you can earn the trust in some of them and their employees and some of the most trusted parts of their business, it makes it much, much easier to then transfer that trust and knowledge when it just becomes a building that you're insuring, or it just becomes an auto that you're insuring, some of the more tangible things.
Yeah, it's definitely in disarray. When we are talking with these agents, that's the first thing. I'm going through a terrible renewal, even on residential and commercial property. But I still feel like workers' comp is the line of insurance that the agents want to deal with last, right? They would rather focus on something. And I understand if the book doesn't perform well, it could cut down on their margins. Again, getting away from client first needs. But it's always been a breath of fresh air talking with you, because I know you see the value in it. And we're going to get into all kinds of that with Curt after the break. Please stick around. Plenty more. All right. We are back. We got Everything PEO on Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. In studio today, Curt Frommelt doing his second lap with the show. IOA, one of the largest P&C agencies in America, Insurance Offices of America, for those that aren't familiar. But Curt's got over 20 years experience in insurance, PEOs, and HR tech, and that's what I'm going to get into next, man. I think more than a lot of the other contributors to the show, you're pretty well versed in the HR and the technology and all the tools and the good gadgets out there. So tell me, man, with AI kind of going through this big craze, what changes, if any, has this had to your approach with tech?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So AI is obviously out there. What I think it's done for my industry in general is at least to say that we can no longer think that the way that our business runs and thinks about technology can be second tier product, right? Our HCM platforms, the way that we're managing our employees, the way that we're managing all these things from a technological perspective can no longer just be seen as a product. It has to be seen as an integral part of the business. And I think, and so maybe AI hasn't had this complete effect on how that is done from an implementation standpoint, and this and that. It's at least made businesses say something's coming along the line, right? And if people are going to invest millions and millions of dollars into, or billions of dollars actually, into some sort of advanced analytics or AI type to help their business, where do I see technology fitting into my business? Most businesses out there, AI is not going to make a big difference to them today, right? I mean, not to get into it too much, but Tesla self-driving, we were promised it, still not out yet. That's kind of, I think about it, that's actually kind of where my business has changed. So whether it's the big HCM companies of the world, the PEOs of the world, You're, in my opinion, you're sold this product or this bundled service that you think is just going to work right out of the box. You're so excited. The sales guy comes in and says, hey, yes, we can take care of that. We can do this. We can do that. And you get all excited as a person. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work that way, right? Unless you have a project management lead or you come from a consultative approach that can understand your business, understand the inner workings of the PEO, understand the inner workings of the technology. Hey, can we link this to 401k? Yeah, sure, buddy, we can take care of that. Well, I don't know. You have 4 divisions set up here. You have money movement from 4 different bank accounts. You have this going on. You have this going on. Is it that really easy? No, it isn't. And I think a lot of times we're sold that this is a great solution for for everybody, and we're out there going, yeah, we can handle that. We can handle that. We think technology is doing that these days, and what I think it's doing is taking a big focus off of the project management and the people that are involved in it. And so I've shifted a lot of my focus onto how do I help people through these processes, right? And an example is I'm working with a company out of Tennessee in Georgia, and they are shifting to one of the large payroll companies. And we are consulting on everything from how their benefits integrate to how to make sure their payrolls are run correctly to how to do extra FIT taxes so this day and age, I'm less and less an insurance agent because that's where I really want to talk AI. That's where AI has had a big difference. AI is coming in, and from at least my perspective, whether it's workers' comp benefits and something like Tobin was talking about, we can use AI to better manage those tactical processes for you. So if AI is quoting your insurances these days, it's looking at your claims funding, it's doing this, it's doing that. Well, as an agent, what am I doing these days? I tell people all the time, if all I did was quote your insurance, your workers' comp, and those pieces, I'd spend a lot of time on a boat. That would be wonderful. I would love to do that.
Take me with you.
Yeah, I would be great. I could work from my boat, which happens every once in a while, but that's on a Friday afternoon. So what our job has to be these days is guide people through these processes and what's successful. And lastly on that, it's not so much what I hear from people is, well, Curt, we used to do it this way. How can we replicate that process? Most of the time, those processes are broken. I know you're a business owner out there and you're like, hey, my business is great. We all know that you go to bed at night and you are scared to death that everything's going to fall apart the next day. I know it from having a small business underneath, IOA. Evan knows it over here. We have so many pieces moving that even when everything is running wonderfully, we're scared. I think that's what drives us as entrepreneurs is that fear. And to know that you have somebody in your back pocket from a people perspective that not only understands your insurance, understands your business, and then understands how the technology is going to help your business is really how I've kind of shifted, today.
Yeah. I think we're lucky in one sense that to some degree, of course, some things may be enhanced and maybe streamlined, but this still is a relationship business, and that can't get circumvented through AI. We have some brokers that we work with that have done the whole SEO, the search engine optimization, and there you've got every click funnel and bell and whistle, and they get dozens of leads daily almost, and they are just so proud of those leads. Like, oh, I got 50 today. Yesterday we got 40. We've got 90 quotes that need to go out. And when you look at the analytics of how many of those deals actually close, we're talking single-digit percentages. And then you go through another agent like yourself, where you are the incumbent agent on the file. You've been a trusted advisor for them, and we close 4 out of 5 for you. We close 1 out of 100 for them. And so I feel like you're not the incumbent, you're racing against many players, bots or otherwise, right? And it's who can quote it the fastest and the cheapest, and then you cross your fingers. I call it cold quoting, and that's not an industry term, that's an Evan PEO Advisors term, but it's the equivalent of. So, we've had these kind of brokers, we get so jazzed up, like, oh man, this could be some real volume here. This could be some real traction. And then 3-4 months later, we're like spitting out 250 quotes and we're lucky to have 1 or 2 closes. The next thing you know, we're saying, if you do it that way, I want nothing to do with it, right? Like, we want the incumbent agent who has the relationship. So I think we're just lucky to be in the type of industry. Sure, if you're a book editor, I mean, heck, even we took my son bowling last weekend and our food got delivered by a robot. Right at a bowling alley. This is not some high Silicon Valley tech space, right? The bowling alley has a robot bringing the food out now. So of course there's industries, that are on the fence, but luckily I just don't see insurance sales in itself on the front end of coverage being too decimated by AI.
No, and I also don't see that is business. So I really have seen this in the world right now. Businesses are growing and conglomerating, whether it's due through private equity money, whether it's through acquisitions, and so we really, I mean, as a society, we're having this gap, right, of the have and the have-nots. I think that's happening, and the listeners might agree. I hope that's happening in business too, right? Businesses are able to manage on a smaller basis, and I think a lot of the solutions out there can really help that small business run and manage. But what I tend to focus on these days is really understanding why the larger business can actually function from somebody, either whether it's we use a PEO to run everything from the payroll, the HR, the comp, knowing that that's all conglomerated, knowing we got our safety and risk services involved, knowing that's all the pieces here. But hey, you know what, Curt? We want to do self-funded on the benefits piece. So we're going to take this out. We're going to use AI to do self-funded analytics on these larger groups. So we're going to dive in and we're going to create a customized solution that still takes advantage of all the pieces in there. No computer's going to do that. No fully bundled solution is going to do that. So I think it's really a two-front approach. The small business that wants to grow needs a full soup to or A to Z solution, however you want to put it, so that they can focus on their business and growing. And then when they're growing, they need an agent like myself who knows how to partner with the PEOs, who knows how to partner with the technologies to adapt that service as it goes and not just be a siloed piece of their business. Right now, as a business out there, you have your insurance agent that quotes your benefits, you have your insurance agent that quotes your comp, you have your insurance agent that maybe quotes other pieces of your business, or they're not adept at it all. To really be able to put a team behind you that understands how all those pieces work together and then how it affects your business right now, I think is what is severely lacking in the marketplace. And it's putting a lot of onus, no offense, on your employees in your office that don't always know what they're doing. I hear it all the time. Hey, we just hired this new person to take over HR. Well, there's our problem. You hired a new person to take over HR. That person needs to be trained. Where are they going to get their training from? That person has never had to do different reconciliations or 401k integrations or had to deal with, well, what happens when this workers' comp person doesn't show up for a court or doesn't do their GWC 25 filing? How am I managing this process, right? So we hire a new HR person. We're so excited about them. We're so excited. And they don't have the training in the background. They didn't learn it in school. They probably didn't learn it at the business they came from. So I see our job today as consultants to truly help train the people in business that are trying to be the best and trying to hire the best. And our approach is to supplement that. I tell people all the time, hey, you can keep arguing with me or we can get things done.
Yeah.
And, I had to say it somebody today. I said, Patty, I really appreciate where you're coming from with this stuff, what we talked about in the future. Give me a little trust. We got 2 more meetings set up. I appreciate you stop arguing with me today and watch the results. And I think that's where our job really does come into play today.
Yeah. It's like a calmness, like let's get in fix it mode and let's attack it, from A to Z approach, right? And I just don't know how to skip any steps to that in an electronic way, right? Well, yeah. So I do say, even though I say that, I also say that, if you rewind 20 years ago, for anyone that really didn't put their arms around computers, and although I live on a laptop, it's all day long, that's all I do. I wouldn't call myself techie, right? This is something that needs to be embraced. I think 20 years from now, anyone that doesn't really bear hug this thing and embrace it to some degree,
absolutely,
will be left behind. I think it's certainly part of the future, but it's even getting to the point now where whether it's an article, you can tell if it's been chat GPT'd up. It's so vanilla, right? And it works and it fills in gaps. And sure, if you had to put 1,200 words together and you don't know where to start, that's a good launching point. But it does miss that but it is neat. You can tell, write it from a 3rd grade perspective, first person, Yeah.
I have absolutely used it to rewrite marketing emails for myself or rewrite responses that I was like, hey, we all get a little anxious sometimes. We all get our emotions up responding to an email. Maybe I'll slow down, throw this one in chat GPT, see what it comes up with, and then respond with that. And you know what? That's going to work out great. We don't say it's something we don't want to, but we make sure we maintain that relationship and move forward. And, I was thinking about AI more as actually we've been sitting here and talking. You know what's really changed is the big PEOs of the world. We talk about ones that we have really good relationships with and so on, but there's the big players out there, right? The big players who would never in their mind carve out workers' comp or carve out benefits are now looking to agents like myself and allowing those carve out approaches. Your 3-letter companies, all the big ones. I'm not going to name their names. They get enough press on their own.
Right.
But the point is this: they are out there looking to us as agents and to say, okay, we can't actually handle this, and that's where AI is changing it. If you're a business right now and you had 30 employees, let's say, there was a time where the self-insured market from a comp perspective or from a benefits perspective was not available to you. You didn't have the AI, you didn't have the analytics, you didn't have the pieces that you needed in order to make that happen. So you had to go with a PEO because honestly, the full solution PEO, because they did have that, they did have the scale, they did have those pieces. And so I think the game is changing from an AI perspective, putting more power back into the business's hands because they have more solutions available. But what they're missing is, how do I manage those, right? So let's just say I do have this great quote and I pull it out from a PEO. Well, how do I build it back in? I still have to do the enrollment on the technology. I still have to manage the claims on the technology. I still have to have my payroll deductions. I still have to have all these pieces. My people still need to be able to go and view their benefits online, right? Some of the simple things that we take for granted. You don't want your HR department just bombarded with questions that could be handled from a technology basis. And so I think when the large PEOs out there are saying, we know we see this need to not be the end all be all solution, and we need agents like myself and others to come take some of this pieces off of us because it is available. I think we're going to get more and more synergy there between some of the top agents that are looking at that way, and then your guy that's just out there, kind of sales guy out on the street.
Yeah. Well, you're listening to Everything PEO on Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. In the studio, Curt Frommelt, a 20-year insurance specialist. Glad to have you, my man. So we've got about 3.5 minutes before break. I'm going to pivot here a little bit. I'm sure you've heard, and I've asked a few people the last few weeks. It's funny. This is something you throw at 3 people and you get 3 different outtakes. So I wanted to, hear your 2 cents on it. But obviously, workers' comp scheduled to reduce by about 15% in 2024. I don't know if you really heard how this happened. Tobin read the whole 76-page editorial on it, but essentially there was, when they're doing their formulas, they took out all the COVID-related claims. Okay. So remove those claims out of the batch, but use the same amount of premium with the remaining amount of claims. And that made the formula, the algorithm, whatever you want to call it, look amazingly well. Coincidentally, going into election year, not a political show, we'll just leave that alone. But I think it's hard to get reelected when rates increase. But this made the formula look glaringly well. It's one thing as the rates have been going down. Yes, the rates are down 78% over the last 18 years, but for the most part, these have been single-digit reductions. Yes. Nothing this big. I saw on the table back in the 80s, 2 years in a row, there was double-digit increases back to back. But what's your 2 cents on this as far as how the market's going to bear?
I find it wonderful for the short term, right? So business owners out there, you need relief. You need some premium relief. That is coming for you. But don't take premium relief as non-importance relief, okay? So when rates are high, not that any of us want that, but we start to put a focus on our business. How do I get my rates lower? How do I get my rates lower? How do I get my rates lower? We start focusing on things that matter. We start focusing on risk and safety. We start focusing on our employee experience. We don't make bad hires. We are careful about our driver selection. We're careful about the guy that's up on the roof and who I'm hiring and who I'm putting up there. Because if I don't, my rates go through the roof. Mm-hmm. Well, all of a sudden I'm taking these decreases year in and year out. What might I get lazy on as a business owner? I start getting lazy on how I'm hiring. On my risk, that Friday morning meeting doesn't seem so important since I got a workers' comp decrease this year. Maybe I'll miss one. I think that is going to come back to bite us in the butt overall, lack of a better term there. I don't think it's a sustainable option if that's what happens. I shouldn't say if that's what happens. As an agent, that's what I'm seeing happen. All right. I'm seeing the ownership of the business say, well, this is easy. This is easy. This is easy. My rates are coming down. What do I need you for these days? Mm-hmm. And I think that is going to be dangerous. I think you need to be, as a business owner, you still need the guidance on making sure your policies are in place, making sure your employees are taking ownership of these rates. The rates are going down, but if your focus isn't on safety and how, as an employee, I affect safety and the bottom line of my business, then we're missing out on creating more revenue for our businesses, safer environments for people, and making sure that the savings you're getting now continue.
Yeah. Aaron, our executive producer, tripped over an article last week where there was a roofer at that meeting with the OIR, Office of Insurance Regulation, where he was literally pleading to not reduce the rates. I want to come back on this a little bit more.
Yep.
I know we got to hit a break. Stick around, folks. Plenty more with Curt Frommelt. See you in 2 minutes. All right, we're back. Last segment. Thanks for listening. All right. We are back. You've got Everything PEO on Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. Last segment of the day, my man. I told you it goes fast.
It's all right.
You're
Have a wonderful time.
You do it for hours. I told somebody today I'm a PEO nerd, so you just call me anytime. We can wrap it up. So we just teased on this a little bit, the rate reduction. And, like I said, Curt, I think the business owner, I think you hit well on that, right? They need the relief. They champion that relief, whether it's their homeowners spiking, their general liability, commercial auto spiking. Finally, we have one line of insurance not spiking. Mm-hmm. You've got to fast forward 2 years from now, right? The average broken arm, what is it? $20,000. The average ambulance ride, $10,000. It's so hard now to generate a decent premium with the rates as low as they are. It's kind of like credit, right? It takes years to build it, just a day to ruin it.
Yep.
Just one ambulance ride and someone's got to do a bunch of tests, or you have a surgery and there was an infection and now you need a second surgery. It's real simple. It's called a loss ratio, premium in versus claim payout. If that exceeds 100%, there's a surcharge on the horizon. I think we were talking a little bit off air, last segment about when we got in the business 20 years ago. To generate $100,000 in workers' comp premium as a roofer, you only needed $200,000 of payroll, roughly. And now you need $1 million in payroll as a roofer to generate $100,000 in premium. It's a slippery slope, and I think that's what that business owner was saying at the OIR meeting was, please don't lower our rates. They're cheap enough, and all this is going to do is put us all upside down. few years from now. And I remember a few years ago when they lifted the attorney cap, right? They had capped what workers' comp attorneys could bill. Fast forward a year or two later, no attorneys want to take workers' comp claims because they couldn't get what they should on these. So they reversed the attorney cap, and they extended the indemnity benefits from 2 years to 5, which that's the wage reimbursement portion of these claims. And everyone thought that was going to finally change the tide on this rate reductions, and it never did. It just kept going down, down, down. I think we have finally hit that moment where the state's going to have some real increases around the corner.
Yeah. Hey, I am, for the business owners listening out there, this isn't a plea to like, hey, you guys should pay more money. No, I'm happy with where the rates are. What I'm concerned about from my perspective and business owners' perspective is, where does your focus go, right? If my workers' comp rates keep going down, do I lose focus on the safety of my employees because it's not costing me as much money now? Do I start to lose focus on how I'm running these things and what's really driving these rates down? So as Evan was alluding to, our healthcare rates are only going up. The cost to rehab an employee is only going up. So let's take a look at this from a bigger perspective. My rate, if you are focused on safety as a business owner right now, and you see these rates and you're like, I'm going to keep these, I'm going to keep these, I'm going to keep these, I applaud you. It's where you need to be. It's not woohoo, the rates are down. It's woohoo, my rates are down. It's almost, what do they say? Invest when things are great. So when things are bad, you're the winner at the top. Now's the time to do it. Your workers' comp rates are going down. Now is the time to invest in solutions that will keep them there. And here's where that becomes very, very important. So I'm a business owner. My rates are down and I'm not investing. Let's say some claims go up. It's not hurting me too bad, but you've talked on the show about having a mod factor. So what if my mod factor gets 30% higher? Okay. By the way, no insurance company out there has to take you. Everybody's like, well, I have to get comp. Yeah, but no company has to write you. There's plenty of state pools. There's plenty of other ways to do this. So now all of a sudden, my mod goes up a little bit. I'm not focused on these things because it wasn't affecting my bottom line as much. Well, what's going to happen is you might lose your carrier due to a couple of those claims. Well, I'll just go get another one. Again, they don't need you, especially at a lower rate. Why, as a business, do I want to take you on, make less money, and take you on as a bad risk? I don't. So what do? I say, all right, I'll take you on, but I'm going to add another 50% on those rates. And you're like, well, they can't do that. They absolutely can. Any private workers' comp company out there can take your mod rate and add a consent rate on it. If you sign off on it, your rate is your rate, and that's what you're going to be stuck with. Or they say, nobody rates you, I got to go to the state pool. And you don't want to get into what those rates are. Okay. So it's something you're required to have. But if you don't take the focus back on your employees and back on safety and risk management right now, it will come back and hurt you when you have to go out there and you have to be a best-in-class business to be marketed to these carriers. And since it's a PEO show, let's talk about that. So if I go to a PEO, we have a dual focus on how to maintain that safe rate. The PEOs got buy-in to maintain safety and those processes in because they're making a margin on that as well. Their commissions are being cut. Their revenues are being cut with lower comp rates. And any major claims are going to hurt them as well as you. So if they focus their processes on return to work programs, if they start focusing their processes on what doctors are adequately managing these processes, adequately managing, this is getting technical, DWC return to work forms, what people can do, and they're adequately managing, I guess, the reactive approach, but then giving you all the tools you need on the proactive approach. Here's your safety manuals you should be using. Here's your Friday morning safety talks. Here's your ladder safeties, your training safeties, your clip-in safeties, and on and on and on and on. The PEO has an invested interest in making sure that you do all that stuff, because if you're successful, then they are successful. So why wouldn't I want somebody on my end that has an invested focus in me all at the same time? Because my focus might wax elsewhere. And so I think there's a very, very great time to take the money you're saving in this and don't rebudget it, but don't save it, rebudget it back into safety, training, and a better employee experience for your people that I think will pay off in the long run.
Now, I got to tell you, Curt, that's the most unique take I've gotten so far. And like I said, I've run this by a few people the last few weeks, but the reality is, yes, workers' comp is, I call it a craps table. You're in Vegas, you're rolling the dice. No matter how safe, no matter how much training, OSHA certified, you could still get T-boned at a red light at no fault of your own. Having a bonehead moment as an employee doesn't negate the benefit, right? The claim still gets covered and processed. So yeah, I guess if it's cheaper just because the potential of some of that risk mitigation can lax, right?
Absolutely.
If you're paying out the nose, you're working hard to keep those losses in line, to keep that premium as low as possible, right? In hopes that you may qualify for some discounts down the road. Yeah, that's a different take. Honestly, you're kind of throwing me for a loop on that. I mean, it has merit.
Okay.
It really does. I mean, it's like anything, right? We pull up to the job site, sign up a contractor, and they've got the F-150 and the tow kit and the lift kit and the $1,000 tires, and the money's rolling in and they're spending it as fast as possible, right? You just know that contractor is one draw payment away, one delayed close off on a job away from bouncing payrolls, right? If they would count the pennies and live from a budget standpoint when the money's rolling in, not just when things tighten up, but from when money's rolling in, think how much more on top they would be. And I guess that has a parallel line.
I absolutely think it does. I think, one of the good advices I've heard from people is open up, if your business is doing great, is get your lines of credit open up when your business is doing great. Get money when it's cheap, get money when you don't need it, so that when times get bad and you might need it, you have that available to you. I think the same thing goes here. As your rates are going down and your businesses are if you can make that bottom line work for you, you can take that money and reinvest in making your business best of class during that time, that's where you're going to succeed in the long run. And I think that's the difference between coming in here and talking to you about some rates and some money that we're going to save you. We talked about being client focused or understanding your business. I'm kind of happy you said, hey, I haven't heard that approach before, because at least it means maybe I'm thinking about it a little bit different. Maybe working at these businesses is or talking to business owners has gotten me thinking a little bit different. But I work with businesses all around the country, and the truth for me, at least, is I had a client, and one day we were talking about their health insurance, and they said, maybe this isn't great to share, but I don't care. They said, I don't really care about my employees and what we do. I said, well, I'm no longer going to be able to work with you. And hung up the phone, and that's that. And I asked them to fire me as an agent and find a different one. That's just not the type of business that I find that I want to be a part of. I don't want to be sustaining in it. I don't think it fits our culture, our needs, and what we want as an owner. I think business owners out there today have a responsibility to put not only quality work out, but create a quality work environment for their people that's safe, that protects families, that is putting food on the table for everybody. And I think as a business owner, hey, let's not beat around the bush. We all like our boats. We all like our money. We all like those things coming in. But I guarantee you, we all sleep better at night when we know that all of our employees also have food on the table, that I'm not trying to lay everybody off, that I don't have to cut people, that I'm not doing this, that I'm growing and I'm in those modes. So I think now, if you can save some of those monies on those insurance and reinvest your business into your business to create that environment, now's the great time to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think selfishly, this market is going to harden. It's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, agents and business owners in the small SMB world are going to rely on PEOs even more. So we've got about 6 minutes before break. I wanted to dabble on this a little bit. I know you have a big affection for PEOs. We've worked together almost 10 years now. It's been a great little symbiotic marriage there. Why? Tell me, man, why do you think PEOs are still looked at as the competition, or even going past that, like a second tier option, especially when we're going to be bailing everybody out the next 36 months?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a little IOA commercial here. So I work with and mention some names. I'm working with a gentleman in my office, Dan Ricker. And one of my first days at IOA, I came in and we had a discussion on PEOs. And I was working on a company that was going to take him out. And here's somebody that's been in this business 20 years, done excellent. You know what he said? Curt, why are you taking them out? Why isn't your first option being maybe they need it? Maybe they need to stay there. Is there a better PEO? So from day one working at Insurance Office of America, our approach was, how do we work more with PEOs? And the reason is as an agency, we only have limited resources to do what somebody else can do. I only have a team that can process so much. I only have a team that can do so much. Our money has to be invested where it's needed as well. So I think it's about in my opinion, agents have big egos, okay? Including myself, right? I want to be right about everything. I want to handle everything. I'm a control freak. I am. I will not debate that today. And many times when that control freak part of me takes over, I have to take a deep breath, refocus, and say, okay, Curt, who are you really doing this for right now? Are you trying to win for you? Or are you trying to do what's best for the client? And I think it's hard as an older business run by men, actually, too, that we get our egos built over time. And we want to win, and we want to win our way. And I do think that it takes a strong person to take a deep breath and say, I'm going to win this for the client. I'm going to do this the client way. And that's really what I think it comes from is A, we want to control the business that's coming in and out because we're scared to death of losing it, right? If I refer something to a PEO, then what's my value as an agent? I'm scared to death. Well, you got to start making one, because if your value as an agent is strictly just to be out there and quote some insurance and, hey, I'm going to pound the pavement and get you a better rate, then you're right. You, as an agent out there, if anybody's listening, you provide no value to your client whatsoever if that's your only job, right? If you're providing a bigger approach, if you're providing a more business-oriented consultating approach, then you can see exactly where a PEO can fit in line, and then you can see where your value occurs, how to work with that PEO, how to call up the PEO and say, hey, what resources can I use? Well, I mean, look, man, PEOs are still paying commissions, okay? It's not like I refer something to a PEO and I don't get paid on it. There's a pool of money there that I should be able to direct and use as an agent to make a co-employment relationship and almost a co-partner relationship be extremely effective over time. And I think that's really what it comes down to is, as an agent, I want to be in control. I want to control where my money goes. And I want to control how it goes. And I think it's an old school approach. I think it's an approach that isn't going to work with hardening markets. And we went into AI. AI is taking that out. This is a people business, but it's a people business. And how do I understand your needs? How do I understand what is going to be important for your business? It's no longer a people business, and let me sharpen my pencil. I absolutely hate that saying anymore. If you mean, how do I make the computer run faster to give me better rates? Sure, like we can have that, but my pencil has nothing to do with it anymore. Right. I'm not out there pushing people for all these rates. Sure, it can help. My relationships with those carriers help to a point, but AI is driving this, guys. I mean, AI is going to be the push, and where those rates come from, and how these how the carriers act. And as an agent, we have to take a step up. And I think I said this on our last thing. Why do I like to focus on benefits and workers' comp? It's the reason that I can dive in and that everything is very AI mandated. And it's where me as Curt can provide the most value to the clients that isn't driven by something outside of me. It's where I really have to work hard at being more educated on my clients and work hard on staying focused. So
yeah, no, I think that's huge. And the reality is when most agents get out of the way and just let it happen, they realize it's not a competition.
No.
And it protects the other lines, right?
Yes.
We go in there and solve the puzzle that for whatever reason you're struggling on. You can't place the workers' comp in the standard market for whatever reason. If another agent slides in there, their very first thing is, hey, I was the fix-it guy on this line of insurance. Let me quote the others. Right. And or if this comes up when we've solved the workers' comp puzzle and they say, hey, do you do general liability? Hey, do you do commercial auto? What's the very first thing we do? We bounce it right back to the referring agent. So it protects the other lines. And I feel like you just banging your head against the wall sometimes to get that point across. Well, I had a whole list of things I wanted to get into today. We've literally got 60 seconds, but I want you to tell me in 30 seconds what you feel the biggest value proposition PEOs bring to the table for your clients.
I think the biggest value that a PEO brings to the client is if I'm a small business, if I wanted to start a business today, in any business whatsoever, I would hire a PEO. That's number one, because from the beginning to the end, I can make sure that my compliance is taken care of, my workers' comp is taken care of. They have all the resources and tools that I need for an employee. That way I can grow my business. If I'm a larger business, I can use those same types of things and then customize it in order to keep my focus on my business and less on the compliance, administrative tasks, and so on.
Yeah, one stop, back office shop, compliance, no audits. I mean, boom, we could have spent a whole segment on that.
We haven't. I've given it for
it. Well, man, listen, thanks for having me. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Everyone know how this ends. Love God. Appreciate your PEO. Be kind to your staff. I know we're on a 167-hour break. Catch you next week, folks.
God bless.
You've been listening to Everything
Cool.
PEO.
Thanks for listening.
That's
Another week on the books. See you, Curt.
See you guys later. Have a great night.
Smarter.
Bye.
Next Wednesday at 6 p.m.